Welcome to the Word Weaver podcast, a literary place in cyberspace where I share tangible tips, tricks, and words of wisdom to help you achieve your dream of writing a book. I'm your host, Louise Johnson, a writer and the author of Behind the Red Door. Let's dive into today's chapter. Welcome back to the Word Weaver podcast. I'm your host, Louise Claire Johnson, and today's episode is a solo one. I just returned from a 24-hour whirlwind trip to New York City to visit my US publisher. I believe I'll do a whole other episode, probably to close out the year, to let you in on a few little secrets that I've been keeping related to my writing career. But it was an amazing trip. It was jam-packed from the moment I got there to the moment I flew home. It was actually very interesting. I was kind of surprised, although I shouldn't be, but there was a bit of a double standard that I experienced, and I just took note of it. Basically, very well-meaning, well-intentioned friends, family, acquaintances. I was posting about the trip on Instagram, and they just kind of asked, like, oh, who's looking after the baby? And I was like, oh, his dad. He's looking after his son for the night. Just kind of like, yeah. And then immediately there was like, oh my God, what a saint. Jeff is amazing. Oh, so cute. Like, what a great dad. And just kind of all of those comments. And it's like, yes, he is an amazing dad. He deserves all of the accolades. He's so present, perfect, amazing. I love him. And Henrik loves him. But it just kind of clicked, and I just was like, this is so interesting because my husband travels for work, often a lot more than 24 hours one night away. He has gone on golf trips, and not once has anyone ever asked him or even me, like, oh, who's looking after the baby when he is away? It's just assumed that the mother, I am, home. And then on top of that, there's no like great pat on the back or accolades like, oh my God, what a saint. You're looking after the baby while Jeff is away working. Oh my God. Like the bar is just so much lower. And it's so funny to me because we're both working parents and I do the bulk of the childcare. But I just found that very interesting. Like the one night that I go away for work, the one night I am gone. But yeah, I just thought it was kind of like interesting, take note of just the way our society works and thinks. And it's very well intended and well meaning, but just when you have two working parents, just like the benchmark is different. The expectations and the guilt and the shame and the questions associated with a working mother, I am always baffled by. But anyway, I digress. We are approaching the holidays. It's almost the new year, and I want to share with you this one technique that you can implement today to manifest your wildest writing dreams, to become the writer that you've always wanted to become. It's one simple technique or tool that I think is very useful to at least have in your arsenal when the self-doubt hits, when you start spiraling. You may have already heard of this before, but it is the act as if technique. So, acting as if is a cognitive behavioral therapy technique, CBT. And the idea is that you act as if you fully embody mindset behaviorally. You act as if you have already achieved whatever goal you are setting out to achieve. And you become that person. You become that future you who has already achieved whatever you want to achieve. So, in this case, and for this episode, it's acting as though you have already become a published author. If you already have a book out, it's acting as if you've already become a New York Times bestseller or whatever your goal is. You've already sold 10,000 copies or you have already published 10 books. Whatever it is, you can get very specific. But it's about acting as though you are a professional writer and really getting down to the nitty-gritty of embodying that mindset. How would you think if you were a successful author? And what would you do if you were a successful author? So a lot of it does involve kind of faking it till you make it, acting as if, pretending. There's a bit of that kind of forced jumping into at the beginning because you haven't achieved it. So you're kind of like your brain's trying to be logical. But there's so much science behind this cognitive behavioral therapy technique that proves that it truly does work. Some people talk about this when they're talking about the law of attraction or manifestation. This is a manifestation technique, acting as if your future self. And the reason why it works is because it almost becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So let's kind of put this into action. If you're really having a hard time acting as if you are already a successful published author, you can kind of look to somebody whose career that you admire, maybe Carly Fortune, Colleen Hoover, whoever your favorite kind of author is, you really admire their career trajectory, how they approach the marketing and the writing of their books. Think of how would they act in this scenario? What would Colleen Hoover do? Or what would Emily Henry do? Whoever your favorite author is. I'm just throwing out some examples. I mean, if you want to act as if you're Ernest Hemingway, you might write drunk and edit sober. I don't encourage that technique, but I think you kind of get the idea. How would they post on social media? How would they sit down and approach the page? This, and I want to really caveat this is important, acting as though you are another author can get a little bit dangerous and tricky. You don't want to kind of become that person and just emulate everything that they do. You want to have your own autonomy, your own quirks, rituals, and techniques. This is just to kind of get you started and get you out of your own head when logic is like, I'm not a published author. I'm not a successful, like, New York Times bestseller yet. It's thinking of someone else and kind of just putting yourself in their shoes at the very beginning. And it does become easier over time the more that you do this. It's the consistency of acting as though you are that person. And it gets down to even the granular level of how would you dress as the successful published author that you want to be someday. And this is where you can have a lot of fun. You can play with this, get down to, okay, what kind of clothes are you wearing when you are going to your book launch party or you're on stage in conversation talking to an audience of readers? Are you wearing a blazer? Are you wearing a nice dress? How is your hair? Are you wearing jewelry? What kind of pens are you bringing to sign your book? Purchase those pens, stock your wardrobe, have those clothes lined up and start wearing them. Like start going to the library, going to the coffee shop, sitting down even at your writing desk or your kitchen table, the way that you envision your successful author self to sit down at that table. And that is kind of the granular level that I'm talking about. What would you be drinking? What would you be eating as a snack? How would you be handling and speaking in your email inbox? What is your sign off as a published author? What would you be posting on Instagram if your book is already out there? You already have a readership. Would you be posting your writing routine, behind the scenes of what it's like being a full-time author, traveling on book tour, the drafting phase, the editing phase, the marketing and promotion, all of that stuff? Like, what are you reading, your research books, all of that stuff, you can start acting as if you are that person. And like I said, it truly is a self-fulfilling prophecy because eventually you will just become so confident. And it's almost like, yes, of course, I will be a published author. It is inevitable because I already am there. And I want to give you one tool or technique that I personally use, and I love to do it before the start of a new year. So it's the perfect time right now. You have to do it with a pen and paper. You can't type this out. Get a notebook, get a loose leaf of paper, get a pen, and write this out. But I want you to, first of all, write out who you envision your future self to be. That's step one. Who is this person? What do they wear? What do they speak like? How is their posture? What are they eating? Who are they surrounded by? Where do you live? Like you can kind of get granular into this dream life of who you envision yourself to be. What does a successful published author you look like? So have fun with that. I love kind of just drafting. Like, even do you wear gold jewelry or silver jewelry? Like, what kind of pens and notebooks are you writing in when you have finally made it? How does your desk look? What does your writing office look like? Are you surrounded by bookshelves of your book on the wall? Do you have a printed poster of your book cover beside you? Like, this is the level you have to start getting at. Now you can kind of see what I mean by why this is a manifestation and visualization technique as well. But the act as if technique goes, I would say, one step beyond visualizing and just kind of trying to manifest in your mind. It's taking action to act as if you have already achieved it. You have already made it. You've already got there. And that's the hard part. That is the leap of going from dreaming and scheming and having it all in your brain to fully embodying that person. And eventually it will just kind of become the new you, and you will develop this new self-confidence that you don't even know where it came from because you're like, I was just kind of faking it as time went on. But by fully immersing yourself in this character of the person that you want to be, you eventually will get a better understanding and start to internalize. So once you have this list of your future ideal self, I also, beyond kind of just the surface level stuff, what do you look like? What does your environment look like? I like to also get into how do you want to feel? This is a really big one. How do you want to feel once you have reached the pinnacle of success? For me, I want to feel calm, balanced, a sense of peace. I don't want to be a successful New York Times bestseller who is always stressed and stretched so thin that they're not even enjoying the fruits of their labor. I want to just fully be content, at peace, calm, have a balance between my family life and my work life. I wake up every day so excited for that cup of coffee and to sit behind my computer to work on my next book, to travel. And the other thing I like to think about is kind of embodying the art of slow living, getting back to the essentials. I reread or re-listened to as an audiobook the book Essentialism. I really like that book kind of when I need like a jolt to remind me what matters in life. I like Atomic Habits for that as well. I'll re-listen to it as an audiobook to kind of get those thoughts back in my brain, or anything by Cal Newport. I like all of those nonfiction kind of businessy psychology books as audiobooks to really infuse it into my psyche. But basically going back to the essentials, getting rid of clutter. Like when I'm a successful author, I don't want to be bogged down in my email inbox or feeling like I'm letting people down. I just want my brain, my surroundings, my calendar, the way that I approach my days to be very fulfilling and full, but with a high quality level. Like just not so much quantity. I'm not doing so many things, but I'm really appreciating where I am while continuing to work, while continuing to write, but just not feeling that sense of doom or self-doubt and putting so much pressure on myself, being better at saying no to things that don't fill my cup. That is the successful version of myself that I want to hold on to. So, like I said, it's kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of the aesthetics, what you want it to look like, even what car are you driving? What purse do you have? Are you going to reward yourself with a nice watch or a really nice fancy fountain pen when you hold your first galley copy in your hands, whatever it is? Or when you get a film deal, even envisioning that of you on the red carpet, going to the premiere of your book turned movie with celebrities. Like, have fun, think about that, put it on paper, and then start asking yourself why. Why do you want to be a successful New York Times bestseller, for example? And ask yourself why 20 times. It sounds insane and it is a very hard practice, I promise if you stick with it and you have to write this down, you will get so granular. Why do you want this? Because I want the financial rewards, whatever. Why do you want this? Because I've always wanted to see my book on shelf. Well, why do you want to see your book on shelf? Why do you want to connect with readers? Why is that so important to you? And everything kind of drills back down. Eventually you'll get to a place. It's almost like your inner child, I find, comes out of like, I'm doing it for my 10-year-old self who would be so proud of where I am today and what I have accomplished in my life. I always get down to this idea of we have one shot at life and I want to make it count. I want to do everything that I aspire to do in my life. I don't want to wait for someone to give me permission. I just want to do it. I want to follow my curiosities and I want to do everything that I think is fun, that fills my cup, that also pays the bills. Again, this is also a career. I need to be able to support myself off of this. But when you get drilled down into all of those different whys, the financial is, especially if you're an author, you don't ever usually go into this for financial reasons, but that is always kind of a very surface level reason why you're doing something. So that's kind of the second step. Drill down into your why. Ask yourself it 20 times. Why do you want to be a successful published author, whatever your goal or aspiration or future self is? And then the third step of this exercise that I do is in my notebook, I will ask myself questions and answer them as though I have already achieved that goal. So I will act as if I have already become a successful published New York Times bestseller, and I will answer the questions as though I have achieved it. So, for example, what did it feel like when you saw your name and your book as the number one New York Times bestseller in the newspaper? What did it feel like? And I will write out an answer of like the feeling that I have having achieved that. Or what did it feel like when you went on book tour for the first time? So my first book came out in COVID when bookstores were closed for months on end. I couldn't even walk into a bookstore on pub day and see my book on shelf. I had to wait months until they finally reopened, especially in Canada. And so, like, what does it feel like to go into a bookstore on pub day? That's a new feeling for me. And I will write as though that has already happened. It is such a fun and important exercise to acting as if. I really just do believe in this technique. It's so simple to remember. I'll be walking to the grocery store and I'll just be like, act as if I am a published author. Or when I was in New York recently, I acted as if this book is already a New York Times bestseller. I am going into these meetings with the publishing team and saying, yes, like this is a worthy book. I'm going in there as the author of a book worthy of their lead title, that this is going to be their big cash cow. And I'm not saying to go in there and be snobby and arrogant or like, oh yeah, I'm a New York Times bestseller, like bow down to me. Absolutely not. Be humble. This is a team sport. Writing is a team event. Everyone is on the same team, but acting confident and proud and passionate about the work that you have created, that you are putting together with this team of editors, interior designers, cover designers, publicity department, the marketing and sales team. You're all working in tandem with the booksellers to get that book out there. And act as though this work is precious and worthy and it is going to be big. It is going to be huge. And again, it's just this technique. You can do it in any area of your life. Like if you want to act as if you are a healthy, fit person, if you're opening the fridge, you kind of ask yourself, okay, well, what would a healthy, fit person do? Well, they would reach for the carrots and hummus. They wouldn't reach for that cold slice of pizza. Like a healthy, fit person is pre-scheduling all of their workout classes on a Sunday. That's how a healthy, fit person acts. It's the same with writing. How does a successful writer act? How do they approach their days. They get up, they open their laptop, they're consistent about sitting their butt in the chair, they go for walks, they let the work percolate, they are readers, they give themselves time to read other people's work, they engage with other authors, writers, readers in their community. Act as if you have already achieved. And really, the key is you have to be in order to become. And I'm all for the vision boards, the journaling techniques, the visualization, the manifesting your goals. But like I said earlier, acting as if goes one step beyond that because you have to be in order to become. This is about embodying mind, body, and soul, that successful version of yourself. It's not just thinking about it, it's acting like that person. I hope all of this makes sense. I know it can get a little woo-woo talking about things like this. I tried to break it down as simply as I know how to explain it. For me, it's this feeling, and it's something that I actively kind of click back into on a daily basis of, especially when I am doubting myself or not feeling super confident, or I find myself getting envious of other people's careers and accolades that they've achieved. Again, you have no idea how long it took people to get there. We're all at different points on this journey, and it's a sliding scale. Like you can slide all the way back to the very beginning when you start a new book, even if you have already achieved a big goal. Self-doubt, all of that is there. But I really encourage all of you to ask yourself, what would you be doing if you already had what you want? What would you be doing with your life? What would your life look like? And start taking action. Make your life look like that now. Don't wait for someone else to give you permission, for that literary agent to say, yes, I'm going to sign you, or for that publisher to say, okay, we've accepted your book. And the other thing that I really like about the act as if technique is it takes off the pressure of how am I going to get there? Anytime you're thinking of a goal or a New Year's resolution, it's like, okay, what are the baby steps? How am I going to actually do that? Again, if you're writing a book, I do encourage you, as an aside, to kind of break down the word count of the book into baby steps. How am I going to get there? How many words do I have to write each week or each month or each day to finish a draft? Like, you do have to do some of that. But on top of that, this is another tool to add into your arsenal, like I said, of it takes out the how. It's just immediately jumping in and acting and doing and thinking like that person. You just kind of go for it. You just take a running leap off of that giant cliff and into the water below, and you don't overthink it. You don't worry about how am I going to get there. You're already there. You're already a successful published author. Everything else, the guesswork is done for you. You've already made it. How are you going to act? What are you going to do? How do you think? What do you wear? How do you approach life? And start becoming that person. You can become that person today, and you'll start taking action and doing things that that person would do. You might feel a little delusional, a little kooky at times doing this technique, but eventually it becomes easier and you gain more confidence and things just start happening. Things start clicking into place. You will attract that energy that you're putting out there. And it is contagious. So I will leave you with that as the number one thing you can do today at the start of the new year. Kick off 2025 strong. The CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy technique of acting as if. Just tell yourself, okay, act as if. You're opening the fridge. I'm going to act as if I'm an author. What kind of snack are they eating? I'm going to act as if I have everything that I've ever dreamed of. You will walk taller. You will speak clearly and confidently. Honestly, I find even my skin gets better when I act like this. There's almost like a glow that happens from within and it starts to exhibit on the outside. So have fun with it. It shouldn't be too overwhelming. It's just a fun little technique backed by science. that I encourage you to try, at least try. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, leave a comment on iTunes, Spotify, share these episodes on social media with your friends, with your family, with your other writing group or your book club. Anybody who you think would enjoy the Word Weaver, these writing techniques and tips, as well as interviews, conversations with your favorite authors. All right, I will chat with you in the next episode. Until next time, bye.